Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed this week's Fish My City episode. Now it's time to go over the tackle I used to catch my bucket list fish. Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed the latest episode of Fish My City, New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans is a really special place for me. It's the city where I won the Bassmaster Classic in 2003. Ever since then, I've loved going to the city, and it has a very diverse fishery, both freshwater and saltwater. Our three bucket list species for the New Orleans Fish My City show were the speckled trout, the alligator gar, and the bull red, big redfish. As a bonus, I got to fish in a few of the city park lakes, and I got to catch a few largemouth bass right in downtown New Orleans. But I want to talk to you about the tackle and equipment I used to catch those four species. I want to start with the alligator gar. And alligator gar are a really amazing prehistoric looking fish. These things look like dinosaurs. They've got armor plating, they've got big teeth, a snout, and a lot of people assume that they're trash fish or junk fish. Let me tell you, they are very smart, intelligent fish that live in the canals all around New Orleans. And we used a simple system to catch the gar in this episode. You know, basically all we used was a simple cork and hook system. And we used a VMC, that's a 2-aught sport circle hook. Great style hook when you're using pieces of bait, keeps the bait on there, and you don't have to jack the fish when they bite. We used a leader about 2 or 3 feet to just a float or a cork to indicate that when that gar would bite it, he would take this under. We could visually see it with the float. On that 2-aught VMC circle hook, we used a piece of cut bait. The bait of choice was bluegill and sunfish. And you could get that bluegill or sunfish, cut it in half, quarter it, put it on that hook, and it was perfect. Rod and reel, you don't need anything special. And I used the basic rod and reel I use for bass fishing. It's an Abu Garcia 7.6 medium heavy, so it's got a little bit of backbone to it. I used the bigger size 30 Abu Garcia Ike Revo spinning reel, and to it a real simple setup of 20-pound braided line to a 15-pound length of 100% Berkeley trilene fluorocarbon leader. And that braid, by the way, I know you've heard a lot about it, but I want to tell you, that's that new Berkeley X5 line. Great braid. Alligator gar, tremendous fighters. They're smart. They're not junk fish. If you're in New Orleans, you got to try to catch one. The next species on the list is iconic New Orleans, Louisiana fish when you're fishing coastal water, and it's the speckled trout. And speckled trout are amazing fish that live in brackish and salt water around New Orleans. And we fished on the famous Lake Pontchartrain. And you know, normally for speckled trout, you're fishing live bait, you're fishing little swim baits, you're fishing soft plastics. But it was an extremely tough bite because they had fresh water enter the system. And it caused them to do some different stuff. But I was able to make those speckled trout bite by creating a reaction strike. Reaction strike means moving a lure and using a lure that sort of forces the fish to eat even when they're not hungry. And the bait I used to catch a really beautiful trophy class speckled trout, get to check another one off my bucket list, was this vibration bait, or also called rattling bait. This is a bait by Rapala. This is a Ripping Rap number 7. It's in a color called Helsinki shad. And if you look at it, it's just a real good all-around baitfish color. Could be a shad, a bunker, could be any of those baitfish species that are in Lake Pontchartrain. The color's natural. It's got a little chartreuse stripe on it. But here's the deal. You heard me talking about reaction strike. Listen to this. That was the deal to make those big speckled trout bite. And I would cast this bait out. I would reel it fast, and I'd rip it off the bottom, let it flutter back down, rip it up off the bottom, let it flutter back down, and I was able to force feed those speckled trout and catch a few really, really nice fish. The rod and reel I used for it, I kept it real simple. Once again, same bass tackle that I normally use. I caught that fish on a 7-foot medium action Abu Garcia Ike Series casting rod. To that, I had a Abu Garcia Revo MGX Extreme reel, and I just used that same line, 15-pound, 100% Berkeley trilene fluorocarbon, and that combination was perfect for fishing that bait and landing those fish. The third target on our bucket list was a really, really cool fish called a redfish. But we weren't after any redfish. We were after a redfish that is over 18 inches long. And when they get over 18 and they start getting up to 10, 15, 20, 30 pounds, they call them bull reds. And we drove a little bit outside the city, down where the Mississippi River dumps into the Gulf of Mexico. It's an area called Venice, Louisiana. Sportsman's paradise. In fact, that was the spot where I won the Classic in 2003. And we used a really cool setup to catch several bull reds in that 15 to 20 pound class. It was a real easy system that involves a specialized cork called a popping cork or rattling cork to a swim bait on the back. It's a real simple setup. The popping cork, the rattling cork, there's a lot of different kinds, but if you look at it, it's a cork that floats. It's got a little cup on the mouth so that when you pop it, the cup actually spits water, real natural. But here's the real kicker on this popping and rattling cork. Listen to this. And just like that rattling bait for the speckled trout, the splash and sound of that popping cork draws the redfish in from far ways away. The water was dirty, the water was a little choppy, so that was perfect to attract them. Below it, just the most simple, all-around fish catcher. Anytime you're in brackish, saltwater, backwater, it's perfect. Jig Head with a swim bait. And I used a jig head that I love when I'm fishing saltwater. This is the VMC boxer head. I used it in a 1/4 ounce and a 3/8 ounce. And this is just a great jig head with a very sharp, solid hook. And to that, one of my favorite swim baits, the Berkeley Ripple Shad in the 4-inch, and also Berkeley Gulp 4-inch in a color called Pogey. Because the water was dirty, I used the brighter chartreuses. The Gulp had orange in it, and those colors help those redfish find the bait. The system was simple. I used 20-pound Berkeley X5 braid on that spinning reel to a length of 17-pound Berkeley trilene 100% fluorocarbon, probably about 2 or 3 feet, to that jig head, that VMC boxer jig head with one of those 2 baits. And man, we caught some giants. On the rod and reel, once again, kept keeping it real simple, using that 7.6 medium heavy Abu Garcia Ike Series spinning rod with the 30 size Abu Garcia Ike Revo. Perfect light salt, medium heavy, freshwater style spinning rod. It was perfect. The great thing about New Orleans, because it has so much history for me in bass fishing, I couldn't leave the city without bass fishing at least once. We went to New Orleans City Park, a lot of water there, and I was able to catch a few really nice bass right in the city limits of New Orleans Once again using a swim bait, but this time a finesse swim bait. And when I got to the City Park Lake, I noticed most of the bait fish was really, really small and tiny. So I went to the Berkeley Power Bait 3-inch ripple shad, and I fished that on a 1/8 and 1/16 ounce VMC little mushroom head. This is the 1/8 ounce VMC Finesse Half Moon. Perfect head for that little bait. And then last but not least, I used it on a 7-foot medium Abu Garcia Ike series rod with a 20 size Abu Garcia Ike Revo with straight 8-pound Berkeley trilene, 100% fluorocarbon. Perfect setup for fishing those little ponds, and you never know what you're gonna catch, but definitely a lot of bass in those places. Man, I tell you, I hope you enjoyed the second episode of Fish My City. New Orleans, Louisiana, amazing city with amazing fishing right in the city limits. Hope you tune in for next week's show. See you later.